And we're just getting ready here to go live as we get a few of the other social media sites going here. So if you just give us a second, it's great to see everybody out there. Well, obviously that's a figuratively speaking. And so we're going live here, and welcome back to another edition of our Thursday Live videos where we try to provide guidance on different subjects in around business and communications. My name is JD Thomas. I'm a business and communications advisor with Jade Strategic Relations. And my goal, our whole goal at Jade is to try to enable businesses and people to get where they want to be. We're trying to help the world in business and people and people in terms of themselves in their themselves, how they think of themselves, and then maybe they have a personal brand that they want to project. These are the things we're trying to help people with. And it's really important for me, especially, to provide tools, guidance, knowledge to people so that they can do the best that they can. And with businesses, people tend to get into business or into something that they enjoy because of what they enjoy. There's a craft, there's a product or something that they really like. And the business of business is very difficult to understand and operate when you're in it for something. And so I do what I can to help those people with that. And it can be even as a public speaker. If you're going to be out there as a public speaker, you need to consider yourself as a business. And there's a lot of ways that someone in my field helps businesses. And so this is what we're looking to do. And today we want to talk about public relations. And I get into public relations a lot in different ways. Through my channel and what I do, obviously, because it is what I do. But I wanted to get into why it's important for business. And a lot of people have started to lose the idea of what public relations actually is. And then in terms of social media, and people just put their head down and they start posting a lot. And they don't necessarily consider what public relations does. So I want to really address what is public relations. And in a nutshell, what I call it is it's developing, promotion, and protection of a brand. And a brand is, people think of brands as different things. Some of brand, what term is deemed as a brand, tends to be changed, or I'll say guided by terms like rebranding. One of the terms I hate most, because when someone says I'm rebranding, it means that it's a common term. I get it, but that it takes away from what brand is, because a brand is, I like the way Jeff Bezos put it. It's what people are saying when you're not in the room. It's the narrative of what it's like to do business with you, the contract that you agree to, that you as a business owner agree with the world. This is who I am. This is what I represent. This is what we're about. It's not about the products. It's not about the service. It's about the mission. It's about the vision, what we want to achieve and how we're going to do it. And so it really comes down to things like when you talk about developing and a brand and promoting it, you're talking about creating a goodwill within the public or community. It's, again, advertising and public relations are two different things. When you talk about the development, promotion, and protection of a brand, it starts with creating the narrative and creating that goodwill within the community. And that can be done through a lot of different ways. And I'm going to go into those in a minute here. Providing education is a way of promoting your business, and it's public relations. When you provide education on on what you do, and you're giving this information away for free, it's helping build up who you are and building up your value within the public eye. Because if you do things on a transactional basis, you only go out there and say, hey, I got this product, I got this service, and that's all you talk about. People will only buy you when they need that product or service. But if you introduce new things and it's within line with your brand, then people will become loyal customers. They'll become loyal fans, and they'll proponents for you and your business. And crisis management is the part of the brand protection. So when things go wrong, it's not, crisis management isn't just within the realm of something went wrong going out there. Crisis management is managing it before it happens. And there's lots of ways to make sure that crises don't happen. It's ensuring that you get your ducks in a row before you put your things out there and understand what are the risks. And public relations in large ways is risk management. And as I said, it's not advertising. Advertising is paying for, this is a product, this is a service, here's what we're doing, here's how you'll benefit from it, and there's ways to do it properly, and there's brand associated with it. Your list of products and services should fit within what your brand narrative is. And if you look at what the vision of a business is, if your vision is to, or your brand, your business is about trying to, let's say it's health products. You want to help people live a good, healthy life, and you provide products that, supplements or something else like that. And people get an idea of this is what this business is about. When you go to throw something like Bitcoin into there, you sell Bitcoin, people then go, okay, well, how does that fit in with that? So when you create a good narrative of what your brand is, and you have a good strategy around it, then it makes it easy to tell people what your brand is about. And it really helps get that message across and people understand it. And thank you very much, Tracy. I appreciate the comment. I do try to provide valuable information. This is what I do, is give and try to help people. And sometimes you can't afford to with, cost challenges are out there. So how do we help? And so continuing on, I want to talk about brand not being the logo. And a lot of people think about the brand of a company and they say, oh, well, I'm changing my brand, or I'm creating a brand. And it's not the logo. There's a great book for people in branding, in public relations and branding, and this brand is not the logo. The logo and your font and your colors are elements of your brand. It's what it represents. And having an effective, going through the process of understanding what your business is about, what you're trying to do, what that narrative is about your business, that helps lend itself to creating effective logos and brands. Because certain colors mean certain things to the general public, certain figures, certain images will mean something else, and you want to make sure that they're in a line. So understanding what you're trying to accomplish is, and who you are as a brand, as a company's narrative, helps you create an effective imaging. And over time, things change. And yeah, you need to update things and to update your logo. There's a big move right now, what they call debranding. Again, abuse of the terms. But debranding is when you see the flattening of images. We went into a place a number of years ago, I think through the 2000s, and as technology started growing and capabilities of computers grew, you saw a lot more creating more three-dimensional logos and more use of color and brighter and bigger elements. And what ended up happening is when we reduce things down to an app, what we found is that a lot of the design doesn't really come through when you've got a little tiny little icon. And so what they've done is started flattening out the images down into even sometimes just black and white, and they call that debranding. But when you're creating those logos and creating those elements, it helps to have an understanding of what they represent, those things represent in terms of you. What do you represent? What do you want the public to know? So creating that narrative is important, and getting people to understand, because when you set out there, when you put your word out there, who you are, the moment you start out as a business, as a person, you're saying, this is who I am, this is who we are, this is what we're about. That's the start of it. That's where people get to understand who you are. When you create that narrative, that's what you want to deliver on. Because the biggest damage to brand can be when you don't deliver. When you don't deliver on what you're promising. And there's pitfalls in there, and there's ways to protect against that. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. I keep throwing things down the road, but trust me, we'll come into that. But creating that narrative of who you are, what people can expect when they come in your doors, how they're going to be treated, how they're going to be responded to, what kind of care if there's going to be taken, especially when something goes wrong. And having policies and procedures as a business, having things ready for when things go wrong, helps you mitigate those circumstances that will cause problems, bad press, bad reviews, things that are going to give you issues down the road. So having good public relations strategy, having someone help you with this in the beginning helps you make sure they take care of it themselves later on. And it goes into creating the narrative. I'll talk about the mission, vision, and values because, and I brand it as vision, mission, values, because it's a great way to think about it as your vision. The vision is, what does the world look like when things are going the way you're trying to create? So if it's a product or service that you have that's trying to make a change, what does the world look like when that is there? And it's not just one product or service, it's your collection of what it is that you deliver. And so that vision of what is the world, it's impossible. Sometimes it's impossible. It's an idea, but it's a vision. We call it vision because you can see it. And great leaders, and whether it be individual leaders or you're talking about brand leaders, help people understand what the vision is, because then people can tie themselves to it. And if you're a business or a person and you don't have a vision, you don't have to, because it's a creative process. But if you have that vision and you understand that other people can join into your vision, and you can join in other people's vision. A lot of people do that when you talk about, let's say, Dr. Martin Luther King's speech, I Have a Dream. He created that vision, that dream, and a lot of people buy into that. And it's not to say that you can't be a good leader and whether it be in business or whatever else, and follow somebody else's vision. You don't always have to be the one leading it, but you have to share in that and have that vision to say, here's what we're going to do with it. The mission is, how do you progress? What is it that you do to help make that mission, that vision possible? How do you make that work? And you can see how this becomes into where you want to pull out your brands, your logo, your elements, and those things to create that imagery of what it is to do business with you. And when you do this process, the mission and the vision and the values, it allows you to, as I said, bring in new products, new services that fit that narrative of what you're trying to accomplish. And it gives you that test of whether or not this is right for that vision. And of course, the values are the things that you bring to the table, the things that help drive your decisions, the things that help you become more effective. And verbs are great ways. A lot of people end up using adjectives or nouns in terms of their values. But when you talk about as a business, having your values as being verbs, actionable things, then it makes it easier for people to live those values. Being more authentic. People say honesty, which is, I love, it's a bad way of, hey, honesty is a value. Well, if it's not, you got other problems. But having actionable things in terms of your values, deliver efficiently, making sure customer service, making sure customers are taken care of, making sure that they are number one priority. And as a business, I like the idea of Sir Richard Branson, that you take your employees are number one. If you have employees, but when you make your employees number one, they will treat your customers and clients like they're number one. So make sure that you set it out there. And mission, vision, values are important, especially when you're hiring somebody else to do some work for you, like public relations, like posting on social media, like doing other things. Whoever is doing work with you, for you, representing you, needs to understand what your mission, vision, values are. What do you represent? Because then they know where not to draw it, where the lines are drawn, where not to cross, and make sure that they understand what it is that's actually being requested of them to be a flag bearer. And so it's very important. And they can go through examples of businesses all day long that have good examples of their mission, vision, and values and how they live it. And when a business and a person lives by their mission, vision, and values, it's easier. You understand these people. You get them more often. Some people you won't get, and they have something you don't get it, but that's fine. But when you do understand and you have that connection, it's biology. It's based within biology. It's that connection, that feeling that we just know that this is a good business that we want to do things with, and we like the cause. So it's very important on that level. And so keeping that in mind is very important. And I see in comments, Teresa's asking, what's an example of using a verb instead of a noun or an adjective? And that's, I give a couple examples there, and maybe you asked that before I said that, but yeah, making sure that it's actionable, your values, the way you can implement that. So, if you say, well, we're going to inspire people. Well, okay, how do you inspire? Like, what does it mean to inspire? It's great that you as a value, you want to get people to do things and live in a certain way. But what does it actually mean? When you talk about, and I'm trying to think, going through my head right now about some of the mission, vision, values that I've written, that vision, values, the values I've written for my clients in the past, some of them they have been adjectives and nouns. It's not to say that you can't have them as that, but it helps when you have some of them that are more actionable, because then people know that they can live by that. There's the ideals. My vision, of honesty is not a bad value to have. It's a good value. But if you just try to go based upon, honesty, well, what does it mean to be honest? Well, make decisions that are in the customer's interest. That's more important than just saying honesty. Prioritizing customers' interests. That's a good value. That's actionable. Prioritizing, making sure that and you do that also, by the way, making sure you have processes in place for when something doesn't go right. Happens all the time with business. Something didn't go right. Maybe it's not your fault. Maybe it's a manufacturing or delivery issue. Things go wrong. It's how do you recover from that? So there are lots of different PR tools. I'm going to move on here because it's the whole point of these isn't to be 20, 30 minutes, but we'll try to keep things plugging here. So tools, what can you do as a business? What kind of tools are there for public relations? And many are doing it right now. You're doing it with social media. You're posting tips. You're busting myths. You're providing education and guidance for people in public relations. And that is PR. It's nothing about selling a product. In your messages, when you have these things, when you're messaging and you have a call to action at the end in social media, as you should, when you're doing the tips, posting tips and busting myths, don't be saying, now I got a product for this. You can, but then you take away the goodwill by providing that. What you can say is, if you're interested more about this, contact us. And so then there's more of a connection there. It's a different way. It's a more subtle, more friendly and community-based way of managing it. So this is why it's always helpful when you're posting tips and myths, but myth busting. You just say, hey, if you don't even have, you can even not have a call to action. There's a few times where I'd suggest it, but if you don't have a call to action in these things, then it goes back to, hey, I'm not asking for anything. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you some information. Providing a public service and charitable campaigns. I worked with a client who was in realty, and we're looking for an ideal way of connecting with a charity because she wanted to give back. And so we got her connected to Habitat for Humanity, and it created that connection, a logical connection between the two. She helps people get housing who can pay for it, and then she also helps people get housing when they have less means to do that. And so it was about getting people in and helping them live their lives and creating the lives that they want in a community. And so that was a very effective way of getting that continuity, that this is what the person does, and giving back. And so it's very important to think about, if you're going to want to create goodwill, having charitable. And it doesn't have to be exactly in line with what you do. If you, I've worked with a client who had a business and also gave to Heart and Stroke Foundation, and every year that's what they gave. That's the big drive. I'm trying to please give to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. This means this to me because, and especially when you get the story as to why it's important to you, then that's another way of making sure that goodwill is built within the community. News articles, newspapers, press releases, and I put in here media advisory because it's important to understand. So news articles and newsletters, things where you're providing information out there to the world. News articles, when you get yourself into the paper, I've written articles, and that's what they call as native advertising, where it's a news article written to represent a certain point of view, and you pay for the position in there, and you can see, there'll be different names for it, but it's sponsored content if you want. And a lot of what you see in the news nowadays is sponsored content. Somebody will say, hey, I've got this, here's something people should know about what's going on in the world. There's this problem here, and here's a product or service that fixes it, and it's brought to you by this, and it's in there. But it looks like, and provides legitimate information, and there's ways to do it. But having news articles done is important. And you can actually call in the media if there's somebody in the newspaper or in which are still viable, or in the mass media. If somebody covers a certain subject, then you can definitely get in there and have them come and visit you and interview you, and that's free. And that's the thing. It doesn't always have to cost money. Public relations can be done very cheaply or for free. And so, putting press releases out there saying, hey, here's information that you need to know that we're doing. I warn people to think about differently, because I've helped people do press releases and they put them out there themselves. And then they say, well, no media showed up. I said, okay, there's a difference. You give a media company a press release, they're going to take it as, here's information we're given to us, we're sending it through. If you want media on hand, then you send a media advisory, and that's where people they'll send somebody to you. They'll send in somebody over and say, okay, well, here's somebody to cover this story. And you have to make sure that and I'll speak to how to address this, but you got to make sure that it's done in certain ways. Press releases, media advisories, getting news articles done for you. It takes tact. It takes a certain perspective and understanding how to get that message out there. Responding to bad reviews and customer care is a part of public relations. When somebody posts a Google review or some type of review that's negative, some of it's going to be bogus, but you can't necessarily call people out on it because it may be true, or maybe that there's ways of managing it. But always try to take the high road. I've seen clients where they've gone back and fought back and tried to really push hard, and it makes them look petty. And then it makes other people, when they see those reviews, they go, oh, when this person was challenged with something, they just fought back. And so how am I going to feel when I go do business with them and something goes wrong? So always take a high road when you do this, when you approach this. To think about your customer service, think about your relationship with the general public. Who's seeing this? How are they going to think about it? And so having that customer care built into your products and services really does go a long way. It's mitigating problems, mitigating crises. You can stage an event within your community, within a community. It could be virtual, it could be physical, and giving back is a way of doing public relations. And there's different ways you can do it. You could host, just have a little booth just out front of if you have a brick and mortar shop, and you can give something away for a day. As people are walking by, you give something that may be useful for them. Putting out there that you're in the public eye and you're not doing something not just to try to make money. And it's a great way. It's a really effective way of getting people in the community to know who you are and like you. Customer loyalty programs. This is another public relations thing. It's about making sure that people who come to you get more value from you. And you're selling. It is a way of selling, but it is a genuine way, because you're going to take a bit of a loss in the near term for their loyalty in the long term. And loyalty programs are very big. And I'm working with a program, economic development program last year, and we did surveys, and we found that definitely people like loyalty programs. Think about getting a free coffee when you go to McDonald's. You build that, you just add on that little card and you get your card stamped. That's a loyalty program. And there's lots of ways of getting in them. There's other types of loyalty programs you can buy into, air miles and all those types of things like that. But making sure that you are connected with a program really helps give people a feeling that they're getting something from. So other areas of PR. So it's not just thinking about those types of things and how you get out there, but it's providing guidance. If you hire a company, a business like myself or other PR companies, it helps you understand. They understand your business. They get to understand who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, and find pitfalls and ways. Disclaimers, making sure that if there's something that puts you in potential risk, making sure disclaimers are put out there, especially when you're online and you're trying to sell to communities that are around the world. And you want to make sure that you understand that if people are representing you, you want to make sure that there's disclaimers. You want to make sure that there's guardrails, making sure that things don't go afoul. In the beginning of the pandemic, I was hired to come up with the signage for brick and mortar businesses when they were allowed to have just so many people in there. So having proper signage out there. providing guidance on how to run the business with certain restrictions. Those things fall under the purview of public relations, because those are guidance things that help you understand what you can do and what you can't do. I kind of jokingly sometimes say having PR is kind of like pre-law. It's making sure that you don't have to call the lawyers or call the insurance people. It's understanding where the pitfalls are, understanding what risks are out there and how to mitigate that and how to help manage that. So crisis management is a big part of public relations. When something goes wrong, someone goes out there and helps the public understand where you're coming from with this. And it's easy when you have a mission, vision, values. If you don't have those things created, what happens is then you go out there and say, well, this wasn't what we normally believe in, and you've got nothing to back it up. But if you've got your mission, vision, values posted out there, and you say, look, this happened, this doesn't fall under our vision, mission, values, we're going to correct this. People have a better feeling of that confidence that you're going to be delivering on that. And so making sure that those risk factors are mitigated and taken control of. So having somebody come in and do a little assessment and helping understand your business is really a valuable thing to do. As it's publicists, but also I've done created book signings for. I've had clients who wanted to get out there and get their name out there and sell the books, and I've helped them do public media connections, get them out there, book signing while there's media out there, taking pictures, sending it to media, creating that context, helping with media prep as well. I had a client I helped get onto TV, and it was an interview show, and the client was female, and I noticed in the interview shows that those seats were really low, and so she was going out to go in a dress. So it was about how do you sit to make sure that things are covered up, and how do you sit yourself in the situation, and how do you engage the audience? When you're being interviewed, you make the connection with the person interviewing you. But sometimes when the interviewer takes it out to the camera, then there's a time to actually go and address the camera yourself as the person being interviewed. So there's ways of doing these things that help you come across better. And so someone in public relations can help you with these types of things too. So when you do get those opportunities in front of the media, there's no blunders and there's no wardrobe malfunctions or other things that help you understand. There's a lot to engaging media, and that helps to have somebody who can prep you for that. And managing events, maybe you're busy because you're a business owner, you're doing something. Someone in public relations can help manage the event for you. So if you're having something outside of your establishment, or if you're doing something, you're making sure somebody who can manage it for you. In public relations, that person's got the eye in mind of what the purpose of it is and what they're trying to accomplish. And even I know someone who was hired to go and help the person who was very socially awkward or didn't feel confident with themselves. They had to go to an event, and so they got dressed up and they went out there. And this person was their media advisor and helping them with relations and just getting, this is this person, and and this is what they do, and creating that connection, that opportunity for the person to engage. It's out there again. That's public relations. This person had an image that they were trying to project, and having somebody help them with that really made it a helpful. What to remember as we wrap things up here: when you're hiring, when you're doing PR, when you're hiring for PR, remember certain things. That public relations is important. You need to be prepared. You need to be ready. Whenever you do a big push and you put yourself out there, make sure you can deliver. As I work with Toastmasters clubs and in public relations and trying to help them promote. And I tell them, look, if you're not ready, if you can't handle, I can put 100 people in your room, but if you can't handle that, if you can't convert them, if you can't make those people feel comfortable and welcome 100 people, then they're going to feel jolted. They're not going to feel right, and they're going to go away. So when you bring people in and you set it up, that you're putting yourself out there, you need to make sure that you can manage the new load that comes in. And it's not necessarily that, you just because you do a couple small things that you're going to be overworked. It takes time to develop an effective campaign and get your name out there, but understanding that you need to be ready. What processes do you have to manage things when you get a little over your head? Think of the interests of the people you're trying to connect with. And I say this in terms of the public in general, as well as if you're trying to contact someone in the media, there's producers, there's editors, and you want to make sure that you convey to them that your story is important to their people. What's in it for them doesn't just count for the general public, but you have to sell the people who are going to deliver the message for you. And so understanding that, when you can be far more effective when you send out a press release and you send it to an editor and say, hey, I got this, I'm doing this, versus, hey, your readers may be interested in this. And there's magazines, it's not just newspaper, there's all sorts of magazines and online and other places, but there's editors out there. And so making sure that you get their buy-in will help. Make sure that if you hire a business that they are understanding of the industry, and make sure that they understand your vision, mission, values. If you're hiring, especially right now, it's big with companies that do social media. And I call it, social media companies are not PR companies. They call themselves PR companies and then they only do social media. That's like saying that you're McDonald's and only selling French fries. That's a segment of it. It's a delivery system. It's not public relations in itself. If you're not helping develop content, helping develop processes, helping develop that narrative, or have some other parts of the process as a part of what you do, you're part of a process. And so, but it's important because you're too busy to do this social media yourself. And so people do outsource that. But make sure it's the right business for you. Make sure it's the right business for your business, because I've seen it before. This is where things do go wrong, where someone posts something that's not in alignment with your vision, mission, values, where it's something incorrect within the industry, and it creates a bad narrative. It creates an issue with the potential public. And so making sure that you stay within those confines, making sure that business knows who you are, what you're trying to represent, and what you're trying to do, and that at least they learn or are willing to have someone dedicated to doing this for you, understanding your business. That's very important. Think long term. Public relations is a long game. It's not about selling your products or services. It's not about getting those widgets out the door. It's about making people trust you and understand you. And that takes time. Relationships take time. So make sure that when you're doing this, make sure that you're doing it for the long term, so that people will know, like, and trust you. So that's what you have to do, is build that up in the community and stick to that mission, your vision, mission, and values, because that will help make sure that sticks, especially in the long term. If you don't have your long-term game set out, you'll be very transactional and you're going to trip up. And always, again, think of what's in it for them. Public relations is about your business, but it's about what the people want to hear and feel. And you want to make sure it aligns. You don't want to try to just put it out there and try to get them, but you want to get people to understand who you are, what you're about, and how it aligns with them. You're going to have people who aren't going to get you, and that's okay. But you have to be out there and try to find the people who do get you. If you look at a lot of innovation, fusion of innovation, where you got the early adopters, the people or the innovators who are the 2.5% of the public, people who create something new, and then you have the early adopters who are the people who will get in, invest in within you, and then you get to the late adopters. Sorry, I'm mixing them. Not representing this well, I'll bring it up another time because it's very important. But getting beyond some people are just going to get you and get through your vision, and they're going to understand you. It's building up that base, so that there's more and more people who see you, like you, trust you. And that's built mostly from word of mouth. That's built from having a larger community, the number of follows, number of likes, number of shares, those types of things, that people will then grow and become customers. And likes, follows, and shares don't equal customers. So don't be chasing that, chase engagement. And when you're out there, making sure that you get people engaged, that you're with the public in that community. So there you have it. We're gonna wrap things up here. Been gone way over time for what I usually try to do with this, but public relations is important for businesses, especially nowadays. There's so much competition. There's so many people who are doing the same thing. So many rivals. I don't like competition is a bad word, but competition for views and eyes. But your rivals, the people who are out there doing the same things as you, they're trying to get their messages out too. So if you don't just take trying to sell something all the time stance, go at it from a different perspective, you're going to have a much better time. You're going to have a far better time of getting people to understand who you are, what you're about. So get out there, put it out there. If you need some help with it, give me a shout, Jade Strategic Relations. But realistically, there's a lot of things you can do on your own if you do it properly. There's lots of books, lots of good guidance on it. But remember to think about that with your business in that terms of, it's not just about certain narrow aspects. We've covered a lot of information here, and that represents the fact that there's so much more to public relations than just about putting up posts. Thank you. Appreciate you. And if there's anything else, I'll try to respond to the comments. We'll respond to the comments or anything and answer any questions. And looking forward to see you next week. Cheers.